Welcome to our webinar, our wellness webinar series. We have several new topics. Anxiety and depression is a topic that we covered a couple months ago, maybe more than that, maybe 3 months ago, I think initially. So this is kind of a follow-up to that. And I think you're going to enjoy this. We have a panel today of 3 students that are coming on, and these 3 students have been part of Crisis Care International for a while, as far as attending webinars, really being interested, learning, and being very active in their own way in crisis response and crisis intervention. So I'll introduce myself first, and then I'd like my 3 panelists to introduce themselves. My name is Stacey Sutherland. I'm Executive Director of Crisis Care International, and we are a nonprofit organization that we work in communities around the world, helping to provide support in the form of counseling, crisis intervention, but also training in crisis care and trauma-sensitive care for people who are struggling and for communities. So I'm the Executive Director. I have a team of 7 people who are all professional mental health folks. And I live in Charleston, South Carolina, in the United States. I had the pleasure of living in Morocco for about 6 months last year. And that's where I met some really important people who got interested in crisis care and crisis intervention. And so I want to introduce you to a few of those folks right now who are fellow students of yours. So I'll just kind of pick who's showing up on my screen. First, Harriet, would you introduce yourself first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Harriet Grace Ole. I'm from Zambia. I have been in Morocco for 9 years and actually no longer a student because I graduated 2 months ago. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is a big deal. And Liana.
Thank you. I hope everyone's okay. My name is Liana Zulu. I'm a Zambian student. I've been in Morocco for about 4 years, I think. I'm studying software engineering. Thank you.
Dear, and Nelson.
Hey everybody, I'm Nelson. I'm also Zambian in Mosoto. I'm an architecture student from Marrakesh. I guess I've been in Morocco for 5 years now. Yeah.
Great. So we have oh. So if everybody go ahead and mute yourselves, and you again, like I said earlier, for those of you who are just coming on, you are welcome to show your video. We really welcome that and are happy to see your face. It kind of encourages us when we're on here, and you're going to have a panel group that will be here. So you'll see them, you'll see me. We're happy to have you ask questions in the chat or make comments. And sometimes there'll be things that questions I ask, maybe things that are going to be asked of the panelist. And you might have a comment on it, or you might have a similar experience. You want to share something. Feel free to do that in the chat box. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you right now. Let's make sure. All right. Can everybody see my slide, anxiety and depression? Yep. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Okay. All right. Thank you. So let's get started. Understanding anxiety and depression. This is such a common, these are really salient issues. Like, many people struggle with anxiety and depression. And so the reason that we called this webinar Anxiety and Depression, You're Not Alone, is because 1 in 4 people struggle with mental health challenges, and anxiety and depression are the most common. As a matter of fact, I would say of all my clients, so I'm in private practice as a licensed mental health professional, licensed psychotherapist, and I will say 95% of my clients struggle with anxiety and depression. It's maybe not the only thing going on for them, but it's one of the pieces to their puzzle. And when it comes to college students, university students, anxiety and depression affect nearly half. And I think let's all be honest and say these are just the ones that report a struggle with anxiety and depression. And how many people do we know who stay silent about this? So many. And often it's because we maybe have some idea that struggling with any kind of mental health issue, struggling with anxiety, struggling with depression, it just means that somehow we're weak or we're broken, like there's something wrong with us. And that's absolutely not the case. So let's talk about what is anxiety, and then we're going to talk about what is depression, right? So anxiety happens because your body's alarm system is responding to some kind of stress in the environment, some kind of danger, something your brain considers stressful, dangerous, uncertain. And basically your sympathetic nervous system gets activated, right? And it might not make sense to you. You might not understand. You may think, why am I having these symptoms? Things like a tightness in your chest, maybe racing, your thoughts are racing. Maybe you can't sleep at night because you have so many thoughts running around in your head. Maybe you find yourself in like a panic state where your heart's beating too fast. Maybe you feel shaky. Maybe you need to sit down. Maybe you feel like you've got too much energy. So there's lots of ways you might notice this in your body, but it all comes down to a physiological response to stress. When your sympathetic nervous system gets activated, that's often because our brain has some signal that we're under stress, and now our body reacts in sort of a fight or flight response. Okay. And that's where we get these physical symptoms. It can feel really pervasive. Like I just can't stop feeling this tension. I can't stop feeling the anxiety inside of me. You know, maybe it's so bad that I'm not sleeping well, or I wake up, I fall asleep, but I wake up and my mind is racing and I just can't get it to slow down. I can't focus on things. I can't enjoy things I used to because I'm too anxious or my mind is too busy or all this. I'm just really have lost that peace of mind. And I think we all realize a little bit of anxiety can be a good thing, right? Because it can motivate us to not procrastinate, to get that assignment done. Um, it can be good to push through some stress, and it can give us the energy to keep going or to do things that might be difficult. But when it becomes problematic, when it starts taking over our life, when it keeps us from maybe engaging in social activities now because we're so anxious, or we're not sleeping, or we're losing weight, all those things, now it has become harmful to us. It's not helping us, it's starting to hurt us, right? Now, how does anxiety and depression, how do they kind of go together? So depression is, keep this in mind, because so often somebody will say when you're down, they're like, don't be sad. But any of us who have ever struggled with actual depression know that it's more than just a feeling of being sad. for a day or two. It's more than just feeling kind of down, right? I mean, life happens and we all have ups and downs. Depression is more pervasive and persistent. So when do you know when sadness has now turned into actual depression, right? Because both these things, anxiety and depression, are diagnosable mental health issues at a certain point when they meet certain criteria, right? With depression, when it becomes persistent, when there's persistent sadness, emptiness, feelings of like despair, there can be fatigue, like actual physical fatigue. I feel like I don't have the energy to even get out of bed. It can feel like a major undertaking just to get out of bed and walk to the bathroom or to the kitchen to fix yourself something to eat. It may be that things that you used to feel that you enjoyed, you just don't enjoy anymore. Maybe day to day, you're just going through the motions of life and you just feel numb. And what this means, depression just means you've been carrying too much for too long. And again, depression is a response in the body physiologically. So unlike anxiety, which sort of energizes you, it feels like that it's that sympathetic nervous system is overactivated. Well, with depression, there's almost a downturn of now I feel kind of frozen. Now I feel stuck, right? And there's a saying, any feeling or emotion that you don't process, that you don't allow yourself to feel, what happens to it? You can try to sweep it under the rug, you can try to ignore it, but actually what happens is it just gets absorbed by your nervous system and it's going to come out somehow. And that oftentimes is where people start experiencing anxiety and depression. There's emotion underneath that maybe they've never allowed themselves to feel. So here's the connection. Anxiety and depression are like two sides of the same coin, right? And one can very easily lead to the other. So if I have a client that comes in and they're presenting with what looks like anxiety, I'm also going to ask some questions to help me determine if they're also experiencing depression. Because the constant worry, the exhaustion of anxiety can lead to feelings of hopelessness and despair. And alternately, that the low energy, low motivation from depression can cause a lot of worries and anxiety in our minds because we start feeling with all that hopelessness, like I'm never going to get better. What does that mean? And then now you're experiencing anxiety. So they kind of go together. If you experience one, you usually experience the other one in some way or other. But the good news is there are tools to help you. And today we're going to talk about some of these tools, some of these realities. Before we spend time with our panel, I want to just go ahead. If you've got questions, now's the time to put some of those in the chat box, or if you have comments, put those in there. I've got a few questions for you. So here's some things people say. It's all in your head. It's all in your head. If you've ever heard that or some version of it, let us know in the chat right now. So just drop that in the chat. Tell me what version of it's all in your head you've been told. And if anybody wants to pipe up here and just speak up and tell me, you can do that too. Otherwise, let's put it in the chat. So the reality is anxiety and depression affect your mind and your body. It's not all in your head. Yeah, Harriet said people told her just snap out of it. It's not that easy, is it, Harriet? Just snap out of it as if you have full control over this. But remember, it's in your mind and your body. It's very much a physiological response affecting all of you. The second myth we hear, people with depression, they just need to cheer up. Just cheer up. Yep. And Nelson's resonating with that one. And number 3, Louis says, you're just overthinking. Yep. And these kind of comments, they just feel so dismissive, right? Because with depression, you can't just snap out of it. If you would, you could. I mean, we would all do that if we could. It's not that easy because depression isn't just about a feeling of sadness. It's more than that. It's actually a physiological response in your body called hypoarousal, where your brain sends danger signals to your polyvagal nerve and you kind of have a shutdown response. And you're not choosing it, right? It's not a conscious choice of doing this. Number 3, if I ask for help, it just means I'm weak. And actually, asking for help shows a lot of strength, a lot of vulnerability, but it's strength. And it means I'm self-aware. I know there's something that's off. And that's how we begin to heal when we take those steps. So let's see what else. It's just in your head, people telling you, just think about other things, right? Or you're too young to feel depressed, as if only older people can be depressed. Not true. How about these? Number 4, anxiety and depression, they only happen to certain people, right? Like that's just, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you've ever heard this. Some people will say that's just like a Western thing, you know, but that's not true. I've worked with people across cultures around the globe, and we know research shows us because it's physiological, these conditions affect everybody, regardless of culture, gender, background, or faith. It happens to men, it happens to women, and it's kind of no respecter of persons. Yeah, white people problems. Thank you, Nelson. It's true, right? I'm not insulted by that. I hear it. I hear it. And, we're all navel gazing over here. If we would just stop thinking about ourselves so much, we wouldn't be so anxious and depressed. So there's lots of ideas like this. If I start therapy or medication, here's myth number 5, then I'm going to need it forever. Have you ever heard that? Like it's a crutch. And I bet, Harriet, you probably have some feelings about that as a medical professional. Like, what if somebody said that about insulin? What if they have diabetes, sugar problems, and they're like, no, I don't want to take insulin because that's a crutch, right?
They're definitely gonna die.
They're going to die, right? This is true story, true story. My dear grandmother who's passed, but she had a lung condition before she died where she needed oxygen, right? We could never get her to use the oxygen. And when we would ask her, like, Nanny, why won't you use the oxygen? She's like, no, I might get addicted to it. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're all addicted to oxygen, right, Nanny? So it's okay. But she would not use it like she needed to help her. People have a lot of fears about medication. I get it. I get it. But I'll tell you this, I have clients who might have really high levels of anxiety or depression, and they might need to be on medication, even for just the short term, so they can get stable in order to do the therapy work that they need to do, right? Because come on, like if you're in a very heightened state of anxiety or you're super, super depressed, it's hard. It's going to be hard to do the healing work that you need to do. It might be hard to even do your day-to-day activities that you need And sometimes for a short period, people need medication. It's not bad. It's could be helpful. And then they can go off of it. It does not mean that you have to use it forever. The truth is, mental health is just as important as physical health. And the earlier we talk about it and we're open and we're honest, that the sooner we get connected to people, we can heal and we can start growing. So there's just a whole lot that we can do. And maybe the first thing we need to do is to overcome some of these myths. And also just realizing that you're not alone. There are so many other people who struggle with these things. As a matter of fact, we're going to learn some more about other students, and they're on our panel. So let's see. Joseph says, sometimes I don't want to wear my lenses, and I'm asked why. Yeah. Thank you, Joseph. That's true. It's like, oh no, I better not wear my glasses because I might depend on them too much. Kind of the same idea. All right. So my three panelists, wave your hands at everybody. Nelson, Liana, Harriet, just wave so everybody sees. If you want to change your view on your Zoom, so you're just seeing the panelists who, as they speak, you can put it on like, I think it's a speaker mode or something, right? Multi-speaker mode, something like that. Whatever works for you. But I'm gonna interview these guys, and they're gonna answer some questions. And I want you guys, the rest of you, to kind of join in with me. If you have a question for somebody on the panel, I want you to put that in the chat, and I will ask them. Okay. And we're going to learn a little bit about some personal stories about anxiety and depression. And then after that, we'll finish out our slides about some really practical ways to deal with this. When we finish tonight, I will send you the slides. So you're going to have all this information. You don't need to go crazy taking notes. I really want you to just enjoy the webinar and enjoy this panel and soak this up. Okay, but also participate with us. So let me start with this question. And Liana, I'll start with you. Have you ever experienced, each one of you is going to ask this, have you ever experienced anxiety or depression or both while you've been a student in Morocco?
Yes, I've experienced both anxiety and depression as a student. Yeah.
Okay. And, we can all just assume that they all have, or they wouldn't be on our panel. But they're going to tell us kind of what their experience was like. So, Liana, what was that like for you? Can you just tell us specifically, what did you notice in yourself that became maybe concerning for you?
I think the first thing I would say I noticed was that I was constantly drained. Like 24/7, I was drained, whether I slept, no matter how much time I took to rest, I was always drained.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that I had no interest in doing anything. And no matter what I did, I never really found satisfaction. Let's say I would say, oh, I'll feel better after I pass my exams. But after I passed my exams, I didn't feel anything. I didn't gain any satisfaction from that. So I think that's where I started thinking the depression. And for the anxiety, I think it was mostly having panic attacks in school and in class. And at first, I didn't know what they were, because I would just be in class, or like one time I was in an exam, and suddenly, let's say my mind was, it felt blank, but it also felt like my thoughts were racing for a very long time. And I couldn't think, I couldn't write, and I was just seated and I was quiet like that. And then after some time, I think I just heard them say 30 minutes remaining, like things like that. And I was like, what happened to me? I was constantly scared. And I also had these points where I would like black out or just be very scared and I couldn't collect my thoughts. And when I went to research about it, that's when I found out about panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and all those things. So I think after experiencing such things and then going back to like research, and I was trying to find out what was wrong with me. because
Mhm.
I used to see so many things, and I would see how my friends were. They didn't look scared, but I was always feeling scared to be in class.
Mhm.
So I think all those things that just made me research more, and that's when I found out it might be depression and
Yeah.
anxiety.
So that kind of gave, yeah, those are all really, really common symptoms of anxiety. And it's not uncommon for people to have panic attacks and not know what in the world is happening to them. You know, people might even think they're having a medical emergency, but in reality, it turns out to be a panic attack. So let's see, Nelson, tell me just a little bit about, what have you struggled with, anxiety or depression, and what did you notice? Kind of like what Liana noticed some things. What did you notice for yourself?
I think aside from some of the things Liana pointed out,
Mhm.
one of the symptoms of mine was to, try to cover up. Like I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
show up more happy, more, just
Mhm.
yeah. I'll have this desire for connection too much because I feel like if I'm alone, I'm just gonna be,
Mhm.
wasted. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that she didn't mention that I noticed. But aside from that, I experience also the draining, just want to be in bed all the days. And
Mhm.
I have experienced both anxiety and depression.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really important what you just said about, I found myself, you know, trying to do something to alleviate the pain of it, or knowing that if I stay by myself, it's getting worse, So you're noticing, just like Liana said, like I noticed something's not right. Something's different for me. Harriet, what about you?
So mine actually happened near the end of medical studies, and what I experienced mostly was just a deep sense of hopelessness. Like I couldn't really explain it. I had like different things I was looking forward to, and I was like, oh, in a couple of years, all these things will be happening. But I was really just feeling so much despair to the point that I was beginning to just think, if someone killed me or something, they would do me a favor.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if I woke up tomorrow and I wasn't alive. And that was
Mhm.
really confusing because I was like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Because I felt like I
Yeah.
had all the reasons to be excited and happy. And at the same time, I was having trouble with just concentration and sleep struggles as well, and appetite as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. This is really important, everybody. What Harriet just shared about depression, as she fell more and more into despair, she kind of became hopeless, and it felt like I just don't even care if I wake up or not, and maybe some of you have felt like that, or maybe someone who said things like, I just don't even care anymore. I don't even want to be alive, like things like this. And often people don't even make the connection between those kind of feelings and, oh, depression or even anxiety. So that's a key one to point out, Harriet. Thank you for sharing that. And so let's see, we've got a question in the chat. What triggered you to be in that state? So I'm going to keep going with my questions. And so maybe that's going to come out a little bit more. Sometimes people do have a triggering event that they, it kind of precipitates this anxiety or depression coming on. And other times it feels like it comes out of the blue. And other people, like Harriet just said, people look at you and go, what do you have to be depressed about or anxious about or whatever? And you can't explain it because there wasn't some big event that happened. And sometimes there is. So, and you guys don't have to say specifically what it was, but if you want to share a little bit about if there was an event that happened or whatever. And I'm curious, the next question I had was, did other people notice the change in you? Did other people notice the change? Liana?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I know people who are very close to me noticed a few things
Mm-hmm.
because they mentioned it later when I talked about it. But I
Mm-hmm.
also know that I was very good at hiding it. So I think mostly they knew that I was anxious, but not that I was depressed and I was suicidal and all those things. I think they never knew that.
And how about you, Nelson? Did people notice what was going on with you?
No.
No, you hid it pretty
Yeah.
well, huh?
Yeah, I'm like the clown of the party. I'm always running the show.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
Yeah.
someone noticed because they know whenever I'm like over trying to be everywhere, it means something's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody realized that you were covering up,
Yes, please.
maybe.
Yeah, only because I told them.
Because you told them. Okay, now for you and Liana, somebody has asked here, and you don't have to say what it was, but could you identify some precipitating event that sort of triggered your anxiety or depression, or did it just sort of happen and you were like, I don't know why this suddenly is bothering me so much, or why I'm so having these symptoms? And you don't, again, you guys don't have to say what it was, but were you ever able to say, yeah, there's something specific that really triggered this in my life?
So can I go?
Yeah, Leanna, go ahead and
Yeah.
answer that, because I forgot to ask you. And then Harriet, we're going to come back to you and you're going to answer all of those. So I forgot to ask Liana that question. Did you notice something triggering it, Liana?
Yeah, I would say that the trigger wasn't Morocco, or it wasn't when I came here and became a student. It was
Something further back.
2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when I lost my mom, and then
Right.
some
Right.
other things happened in my life. There was
Yeah.
some abuse happening, and then after that, I lost my best friend again. So it was mostly grief and abuse that, and then
Yeah.
like me, years later, it was just me going on with life without really dealing with those things. That was the trigger, me not really dealing with my whatever happened to me.
Yeah. So pay attention to what she just said, because it goes back to that quote, you know, and I'm not saying you swept things under the rug, but like sometimes we push through a lot of hard things in our life and they sort of build up, but they're really not gone, you guys. It literally does kind of sweep all of those unprocessed emotions and grief and whatever right into our nervous system. And then eventually we just get under enough stress that it starts showing up and coming out. So Nelson, for you, did you know there was a trigger? And again, you don't have to share what, but
Yeah.
was there a trigger for you?
I think I would say uncertainties that, come with life,
Yeah.
general, like things you didn't plan, like health issues, or maybe talk about school in Morocco where you have Anglophone and then you are in a French class and you're supposed to talk and stuff. Also just interpersonal relationships with people and, I'll just say uncertainties in general.
So it's like things pile up, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one huge thing happen to you. It can be like over time, things
Please.
stressors just pile up. How about you, Harriet? Did you notice anything that was a trigger, and did other people notice the symptoms that you were experiencing?
So mine actually, I would say it's, as Nelson said, it's quite easy for me to evade my emotions, or at least it's gotten better with the last couple of years. And I feel like that in itself became what was like the trigger, because I didn't have boundaries and I didn't understand the notion of emotional health or having to like process my emotions. I'm someone that, because of certain contexts I've been in, would spiritualize everything. And so if I was feeling anxious, if I was feeling worried, even if something really bad happened, I would just thought that, or just about it. The Bible says, don't be anxious and all that. And so for me, I think it was so many years of something happening that I was to have grieved and processed, and maybe sometimes even get angry about, but really just spiritualizing everything and keeping on going and just all the things that we used to cover everything, walk in love and
Mhm.
all those things. And so all that then led to a point where I was just totally burnt out together with just my medical studies and everything, but then also now depressed. And that's why it was confusing, because it was like, I couldn't see anything specific that was like, this is why I'm feeling this way. But I got to realize later on that it was just lots of years of just ignoring my emotion, not having boundaries, and spiritualizing everything instead of really processing and bringing them to God. And so
Mhm.
for me, that's what it was. And at the time, people around me didn't notice, because I was in a context, I was school, and in most of the circles I was in, and really how I was, honestly, I feel like there wasn't so much the attention to how I'm doing as much as to the things that I'm doing and how I'm
Yeah.
performing. And so
Yeah.
I didn't even have the outlet to really realize it, or have someone really tell me, no, you need to stop and pay attention to yourself.
Mhm. Wow, so many
Mm.
good points that you're making there. So I'm going to go with the last one first about people around you were just focused on what you were doing and your performance. And as long as you could keep that up, you were okay, because they weren't really looking to see how you were doing. And I think, Nelson sort of touched on that a bit too. Like, he had a way of coping, and his way of coping is like, be the life of the party, bring the humor, kind of laugh it away. And that worked for everybody else for a long time, but somebody noticed and kind of pushed into that a little bit and was like, something's up. Like, this is too much. What's going on? Another thing Harriet just mentioned, super important here, is about how she said, I wasn't able to like process those emotions. And I was in a spiritual community where it was all about, well, just pray about it, right? Well, that's called spiritual bypassing. And we're going to talk about that in our next webinar in November. November 7th, we're having a webinar on spiritual abuse and religious trauma. And I hope all of you will come, because it's going to tie into what Harriet talked about. And it's a way that a lot of times in our faith communities, we kind of shut people down, or we shut each other up. We maybe don't mean to, but maybe sometimes we do mean to. I don't know. But it's spiritual bypassing. And the last thing she said about that was, I didn't process that, and I didn't bring that to God, like bringing it to God honestly, openly. Instead, it's this, just pray about it and move on. That's spiritual bypassing. And that doesn't help us heal. And it doesn't help us overcome anxiety and depression. It really doesn't. That takes a lot of honesty about where we are and what we're experiencing. So I want you guys to keep putting your questions in the chat about these things we're talking of, and any specific questions you have for the panelists, put those in the chat, because I'm going to ask them. A couple things, I have a couple more questions for you myself about seeking help. Did you try to seek help or support? And then what were the responses you got? Kind of briefly tell me the responses, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. Liana?
Um, yeah, I did try to seek help. Um, I think the first thing I got was from family. I felt like they made it about them. They they made it more of what did they do to cause it, rather than how are they going to help me. So
Yeah.
I chose to stay away from that. And then I think the other time I tried to seek help was when I got professional help from you. And I think that was very nice. That was like when I finally found someone who understood me and I felt validated, like I wasn't making things up and being dramatic. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And that happens so often. Like, we take our pain, we take this struggle to family, and unfortunately maybe they get a little defensive, or they start thinking like, oh, what did we do? And then you end up comforting them, right? Or like Liana
Yeah,
did,
that's how
like,
I felt.
yeah,
I
you're
felt
comforting
like
your
I had to
family.
comfort them.
Yes. And then that's just more exhausting, and you're already exhausted, it's more emotionally exhausting too. And so then we shut down, we bring it back inside because that didn't work. So Nelson, did you try to get support? And like, what helped? What was people's response to you if you did?
I don't think, I mean, I did later, but that was when it was climax,
Yeah, yeah.
because I think my culture is, especially for men, we
Mhm.
don't go there, we don't
Yeah.
go there. And also because personally in my childhood, I was used to doing things by myself, and I had to get it together. So I think I only had to seek help, not because I wanted, but because I totally broke down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I stopped showing up, school, church, nothing. And, people that cared about me were like, he needs help. And then that's when you came in, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you.
And thank you for sharing that, like just being transparent about that, because I think so many people do that. They take it inside, and you made a good point about the gender issues here that come into play, right? Because there's a very strong message to men. And culturally, this message can be both men and women, but then just gender wise, there's a very strong message to men that you don't talk about emotions, you know? Um, Women, let's say we have a breakup or something, we can go cry to our girlfriends and be sad, and we're going to get comforted. Men are going to be told, get over it. Hey, dude, just let's go shoot some hoops or something. And I mean, just a lot of discomfort for many men around emotion. So until you find your people who can handle emotion, a lot of men are just going to take it inside because there is a part of them that equates emotion with weakness. And that's not really true, but there's a really strong message about that in our cultures. It's in my culture too. But that can also happen to women in a different way. Like there's a level of emotion you can bring, but don't be too sad for too long. Don't be too much. So lots of things. And then you get to the point where it's a breaking point. Like Nelson said, I had a breakdown. I couldn't take it anymore. And then your friends come in and now they're a little more, now they're worried, you know. Harriet, what was your experience?
So my experience, like I said initially, I didn't even know how to process my emotions or even understand what was going on. So I didn't directly ask for help, but I tried to talk about how I was feeling and the fact that I was struggling to even pray. I didn't have peace and it was hard for me to function. And I think initially the response I got was a very harsh, hard response of like, how dare you even question God? Or how dare you even feel that way? You just have to pray, you just have to keep moving. And then, because I was really at a point where I couldn't function, and also I then decided to go back home. And went home, it was the same situation as Liana. I couldn't share much with my family because just beginning to share with them, they were already just, for my family, it was more of really concerned and worried, especially before I went back home, because they're always like, you're so far away and we are not there. And they kind of just feel helpless. And so instead of listening, they're more afraid and begin to stress out, and they begin to like just basically try to tell me to snap out of it because they feel like they can't do anything about it. But thankfully, what helped was at the time that I was back home, the church back home was having a program that was based on a book by Dr. Henry Cloud, Changes That Hear About Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, but it also had a lot of examples of other people's stories. And so it was in doing that that my own feelings and experiences were being validated because it was in a small group. And so we could share and have questions. And it was there that I began to then speak about certain things and then had others tell me, oh my God, that's terrible, or you shouldn't have been treated that way. Or like, then it helped bring up certain things. And from that point on, I was able to make better decisions coming back to Morocco and just having boundaries and knowing what's healthy and better ways to deal with my emotions.
I love that for a couple reasons. So many things about your story, Harriet, because you were initially wounded in the church setting because you were kind of misled about what to do with all these things that were happening inside of you and told to just kind of pray about it, just get over it. But then healing for you actually happened in a faith community. And so I feel like that's very redemptive of your story. And I want to point that out, that in no way are we saying that all faith communities are going to do the spiritual bypassing thing and that there's spiritual abuse happening, all that. It does happen. We need to be truthful and acknowledge it, that sometimes sometimes the first places people go to get help for mental health struggles, it's their faith community, right? It might be their pastor, it might be a pastoral counselor, whatever. And sometimes they let us down. And sometimes some of the ingrained beliefs in the faith community about mental illness come out. It doesn't mean they're biblical. It just means it's what people think. And so Harriet was able to, in another place, she was able to be in a community that actually supported her healing and actually gave her resources towards healing. And even Liana and Nelson, I mean, the way that we met was through their faith community, who actually like contracted me as a therapist in the community to come in, and because they believe in mental health support. So you can have both experiences, but thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And if I could just
Yeah.
add one thing shortly,
Uh-huh.
especially on what you just said,
Mhm.
because I feel like after having such a negative experience with faith community, many people just end up deciding they want nothing to do with the church, or even worse, they want nothing to do with God. But
Mhm.
in my experience, and even just within that course that I did, there was so much emphasis on like our brokenness, whether it's from our families, from our friendships, from our church community. It happens in relationship, and the repair of it and how God heals us is always in community. It's never alone. And for me, the last couple of years, the biggest blessing I've had is just God bringing so many amazing people and a wonderful community, even here in Morocco, that even attests more to the fact that it's in community that we heal and even learn better.
Yes. And such an important point, you guys. This is why you're all here. This is why we're having this webinar series, because we believe what Harriet's saying. Healing happens in community. And also the truth is, anxiety and depression are very isolating. They make you want to be alone. They make you feel like nobody understands, like there's no hope, no one can help you, no one can support you. And, we want to break through that and kind of reassure those parts that don't think there's any hope. There is hope. There can be healing in community. So thank you for saying that. Somebody said in the chat about men that it's a broken society that tells them that showing emotions is weakness. That's true. It is. It's a terrible message. And there's something, broken in that. And we want to help people understand that actually it's not weakness. There's strength in showing emotion. It makes you a healthier person. It makes you healthier in relationship with other people, to show and process emotion in a healthy way. I want to invite everybody to tell us your experiences in the chat if you want to. Tell us what helped you. Maybe you can tell us if there was some response from people that hurt you, if you've ever tried to share and get help from others. You can put that in the chat if you'd like to share. Some other questions I have for the panelists as we kind of wrap up a little bit. What do you wish people had done differently for you? Maybe, or maybe what you wish you'd done differently, as far as getting help. And if there's a brief message that you just want to leave with our audience today, now is the time. So Liana?
Probably what I wish people would have done differently was, I think I wish they listened. I think a lot of people were responding and judging and other things instead of actually genuinely listening. So I think it would have been better if people listened. And then what I wish I would have done differently, probably gotten help sooner. But then I also know that I didn't know what it was, so I wouldn't really hold it against myself. But
Yeah.
I wish I got help sooner.
Yeah.
A brief message I would like to leave is I think that you're not alone and that more people than you think are going through a lot of depression and anxiety, because before I started getting help and figuring it out, I didn't know how many people were going through it. But after I've seen a lot of people come out and talk about it, and I've realized how a lot of people are going through something similar. It might not be the same, it might not be to the same extent, but a lot of people, especially young people, are going through something similar, and you're not alone, and it will get better. It might take some time, it might take a few years, but it definitely gets better as long as you keep on working towards getting better. I think that's all.
Thank you, Liana. Thank you. Nelson, what about you?
I think for me, just that something I'd have done differently would have been, not just playing by the rules of like other people's game and way of doing things. Because I think, some of the things I internalized growing up in my culture were like things older people that would have been like, we don't express them. They had like private sessions, of talking, the men, the women, and all that. But then with this modernization and stuff, we adopt that, which it doesn't work. So I think I could have probably went with how I felt, like I need to talk about this. I need to let it out. So just like playing by my own rules, and something that I want to live with a group, I guess, like Liana said, you're not alone already. There's a lot of people. Just because people are not talking about it doesn't mean something wrong with you. And, get help. Start small, talk to a friend, to someone has knowledge about this, and yeah, also there's a lot of materials, resources on the internet. There's ChatGPT now. You could ask some questions. I feel this way, and start small, and yeah, just be kind to yourself.
I love it.
Take care of yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Nelson. Love that. Harriet?
So what I wish others could have done, either, especially in the moment when I was having the depression and almost getting suicidal and not getting the help I needed. Now that I think about it more and more, I've wished that people could have been more bold and courageous to do the work of healing themselves, because over time I've realized whether it was people that neglected me or people that hurt me or people that wounded me, they had their own wounds, and they also did not learn how to process their own emotions or how to learn to be emotionally healthy. Either they, like me, just went through like suppressing their own emotions, and so even though they cared for me when I was in that situation, it was almost triggering for them. So instead of really listening to me, they rather dismissed or told me snap out of it, or were just unhealthy or manipulative. And so more and more, if there's anything that I have wished, is that people would have been more open and bold to processing, whether it's trauma, whether it's grief, whether it's, because all the unhealthy patterns and the most unhealthy people, I feel like it always comes from their own hurts and wounds that were not processed and project that to other people. And so, yeah, that's what I wish could have been done for me, if people could have just done their own work. And then what I wish I did better, for a long time, I knew that I wasn't really vulnerable. Like, even though most times certain positions put me in a place which demanded a lot of like performance, but I also just always showed up with, I have to be the strong one. I have to be there for everyone else, and never really admitting to negative emotions or like really opening up when I'm struggling. And yeah, although I don't fully regret that as well, I don't regret that I didn't really do that, because again, with having to then learn better, I realized when it comes to vulnerability as well, it's not like we're saying you just go and speak to everyone and you just, because sometimes it can be more wounding to just open up to anyone. And so I wish I was more vulnerable, but at the same time, now that I have learned better, I wouldn't even go back to the same people and open up to the same people. It's taken time of like that healing and God bringing the right circles, and then me being able to be more vulnerable and experience even greater healing. And so, yeah, I feel like that even covers my last, what I would say to everyone is just mostly like paying attention to yourself and just being open to processing. Don't be afraid of your emotions. Don't be afraid of processing, whether it's trauma, whether it's wounds, whether it's grief, because you can never suppress it. Even though you think you're okay and you're just performing, it's ultimately going to come out. Either it will be something that will come out in your relationships, in your studies, or like me, at the very end, when you feel like you're about to move into a next step and then it holds you back. And so don't suppress your emotions, be open to doing the work and to even just webinars like this or anything that helps you even learn better about emotional health.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, guys. This has been so valuable. Like just your willingness to be vulnerable and share. I hope everyone appreciates this. And I appreciate the vulnerability of Vinod Kombela, who shared in the chat just about the anxiety attacks, and then having friends laugh at you or not understand is so painful. And I'm sorry that happened to you. Just finding those safe people that you can trust and that you can open up to is so important. And sometimes it takes a while to find those people. We need more people trained to be good listeners. And so I hope you'll kind of stick with us with Crisis Care International, because we want to do training like that. We want to do training to help people know how to be good helpers, how to help someone else in crisis. So you'll kind of stick with us and keep coming back for our webinars. You can go on our website. It's crisiscareinternational.org, and you can learn more. I'm going to show you really quickly, just our last few little slides. I'm going to go through them quickly, and then this is going to be available to you. We'll even put this on our YouTube channel, this video. So if there are people that you know that want to hear more, or maybe they couldn't make it to the webinar, we'll clean this up and we'll have it available in a few days. But let me go back to my screen real quick and just go through some practical steps. And a lot of these have already been mentioned, just about talking to someone, break the silence, and really learn about what you're feeling, because pay attention. Your body's telling you something. I always tell my clients, be a student of yourself. Learn what your body's saying, how you're feeling physically, and notice what you're feeling emotionally. Is it sad? Is it angry? And there's lots of other emotions. So being kind to yourself, having that compassion about what you need, and not judging yourself. You're not silly. This isn't crazy. None of that is true. Routines are so good for you if you're struggling with anxiety or depression. Just having consistent routine, consistently time to wake up, eat, sleep routines, it helps your body feel safer. So it sends those messages to your brain, I'm okay. So get into a routine, move your body, get the stress out, get the cortisol and the adrenaline, regulate your nervous system, regulate your endocrine system. You don't have to go to the gym, just get out and walk, which is also something called bilateral stimulation in your brain. When you walk, you're moving both sides of your body. And this is a way that naturally it helps heal our brain. So there's great research around this, you guys. Just do something creative to let yourself express inside. If you feel like I can't talk to anybody or say anything, start with writing in a journal, drawing. If you're somebody, even if you're not that artistic, whatever, if you don't consider yourself to be super artistic, it's a way to let your emotions out. Okay. You don't have to also earn rest. Rest is needed and necessary. I think everybody on the panel kind of said it was exhausting to go through this. It's like physically exhausting. So take those times to just be still and sort of get grounded and help yourself heal. Okay. Don't isolate as much as you're tempted to be alone, to get small. This is the time to keep making those connections, like just little things, reaching out. Find your safe people that can remind you that you matter. Okay. If you listen to that anxiety that tells you it's too stressful to go do that thing, your world is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. And it might feel safer in the moment, but over time, it's going to feel worse and worse and push you into depression. So stretch yourself, don't isolate, and get professional help. Asking for help is a sign of strength. And get peer support, get professional support if you can. Here's a reminder, healing is not about getting back to normal, because it changes who you are. It's about finding some balance and peace and new ways to take care of yourself one step at a time, even when you're under stress. Life is always going to have stress, right? But how can I keep healing even in the midst of that? How can I move forward? And yeah, listen, be kind to yourself, as Nelson says, and be kind to that person around you right now that is struggling with anxiety or depression. I hope this kind of enlightens you, or like opens your mind up to the possibilities of how people might be hurting that you haven't noticed, and ways that you could come alongside them and actually help walk with them and support them through a hard thing. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. And I'm going to stay on for just a little bit. If anybody wants to stay on and chat, you're welcome to. And if any of the panelists want to stay on too, we can stay on for a few more minutes, but that's it. That's the end. Thank you for coming to our webinar tonight.